You're listening to episode 237 of the Master Your Mind, Business, and Life podcast. Have you ever thought about traveling the world as a nomad? What about starting and running a business while traveling the world? That's exactly what this week's guest did. Anne Claessen helps podcasters to increase their impact, reach their ideal clients, and monetize their podcast. She does that by offering masterminds, online courses, and DFY podcast production with her team at the Podcast Babes. She has grown her business and podcast from scratch while traveling the world as a digital nomad. Within this episode, we discuss everything from understanding why Anne leaned into the digital nomad life, started a business while traveling, lessons she learned, and even the impact that the pandemic had on her lifestyle, plus so much more. While you're listening today, be sure to screenshot and share that you're listening. Share that on Instagram stories. Tag me in it at MindBizLife, and let's start a conversation. This episode is brought to you by Spiritually Seeking. When you go to spiritually-seeking.com and enter the promo code podcast at checkout, you can save 20% on numerology reports, affirmation cards, and life guidance sessions. Go to spiritually-seeking.com and enter the promo code podcast at checkout. Okay, are you ready to meet Anne and learn all about digital nomad life? You know what to do. Tune in, turn it up, let's go.
You're listening to Master Your Mind, Business and Life. Conversations with everyday world shifters, truth seekers, and rule breakers. Here's your host, Lauren Smith.
Hey, Anne, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Lauren. Thank you so much for having me.
We did a conversation on your podcast, I think it was last month, and I'm so happy that you're now in the hot spot. So, Anne, you're not only a business owner, but you're a digital nomad. So tell us, what made you jump into the life of being a digital nomad?
Oh, yeah, it has been a journey. So, when years ago, I went to university and my goal was always to become a lawyer. So I went to law school, got all my degrees. I also went to business school. I don't know why actually, but I did that.
You're just doing the most out here.
Yeah, I don't really know what the thought was there, but that's kind of helpful now. But
yeah, for sure.
But I studied long and hard, got all my degrees, and then I realized that I really didn't want to be a lawyer. That was just, I just couldn't see myself sitting in an office 60 hours per week or more. No, that was just not me. I just didn't, I did some internships too, and I just didn't like it at all. But I was really lost on what it was that I did want to do. Like I was just completely lost. So I thought about it for a few months, couldn't figure it out. So after getting all my degrees, I made a decision to just go and travel. I always planned to travel between university and starting my career, but there was no job lined up or anything, and that was my original plan. So I decided to just go and see what happens. So that's what I did. I left my home country, which is the Netherlands, in September 2018. And I traveled in Asia. We did the whole backpacking thing, partied a lot, did not much else, very cultural. And then I went to Australia to do my working holiday, still had no clue what I wanted to do, like literally no clue. I worked on a strawberry farm in Australia.
Shut up, that's so cool.
It was an experience. But it was actually not that bad, but I wouldn't do it again. But it was a good experience. It also gave me the time to really think about what I wanted to do, because I had all this time just picking strawberries. So I was all by myself, just listening to music or to podcasts or just to my own thoughts, and having the opportunity to actually listen to my thoughts and just spend so much time with myself. That gave me the opportunity to really come up with a plan. And what I realized is that I don't want to work a 9 to 5. I don't want to work like a normal job, quote unquote. That's just not me. Like, I didn't want to go back and then work in an office. So I decided, maybe I considered teaching English in Vietnam. I'm not a native English speaker, so that is difficult. It's supposed to be difficult to get a job. So I was like, I don't know. And then I read about online business. I read about a course that someone took, a virtual assistant course, to start to work online. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to look into this course. So I took the course, and it was really, really broad. Like, they talked about blogging, social media, email management, and also podcast management. And that module was like, ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
I always listen to a lot of podcasts. So I was like, oh, are people actually doing this for a living? Like, is this an actual job? So I was very interested in that. So I just decided to try it out. I got my first few clients just through networking. The course also had a Facebook group, and then just building my network. That's how I got my first few clients, got into podcast management. And it just went from there. So when I started my business, I was just a freelancer doing podcast management. And now in the past, that was more than a year and a half ago. So now I pivoted my business a few months ago into more podcast strategy, which is funny because my master's in business is strategy. So it really came full circle.
It really did. It really did. And I'm sure that, all of your knowledge in law too just helps you on that back end of business as well, protecting yourself and also making sure that the creative side is being protected, and you can help that with your clients as well.
Well, I must say that in my law school, they really teach you how to think, how to draw in between the lines. Really, it's really right or wrong. This is the right answer, and everything else is wrong. And in business, that's just not how it is.
Yeah.
And also, when we started law school, one of the teachers actually said, okay, so all the creativity that you have in you, that will not be there when you end law school. Like,
Stop.
we will make sure that all goes away.
No.
And that was like a joke, but
also true.
Also kind of true. So I've also been like unlearning a lot of the stuff that I learned in law school, to be completely honest. Like, of course, like, you always get new skills, and it's not that I totally regret going to law school, but it's maybe not as helpful as it sounds.
No, I love that you're so honest and authentic about that, because I think I resonate with that as well. Like, when I went to university, there's this piece of me that is still unlearning a lot of the narrative that was told to me. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that worked for you, right? Because a lot of the times when you're being told this, it's just by a professor. So that's one person's opinion. That's their perception of the world. Like, that's what they're trying to mold, what they're trying to do. And it doesn't give you that freedom to just be yourself and have your own thoughts, your own identity, or like making up your own mind too. So I love that you can recognize that you're unlearning a lot of what didn't suit you as part of your journey, but still acknowledging that it was a vital part of your journey as well.
Yeah, I also think that if I would have started my business 7 years before I did now, then it would probably look completely different. And I don't know, like, I probably just needed this experience of going to university, going to law school, to also realize that I didn't want to be a lawyer. Because otherwise, maybe I would still be wondering, like, oh, maybe I would have been a lawyer by now. Like, right. Oh, what if? But now I'm like, nah, tried it out, not my thing. Move on.
Yeah, I love that. And you gave yourself permission to do it as well, and not like see it as like, oh, well, I could be wasting this, or I wasted my time. Like, no, it's just not for me, and that's okay. So we're going to find what is for me.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So when you went to Asia, were you traveling alone, or did you have like a travel buddy?
It was like on and off with friends. So when I left, my first stop was Indonesia, and I was there with a friend from back home. So she joined me for the first month. After that, I was alone for maybe a week or 2 weeks, and then another friend came over, and I traveled with her for a few months, and then I was alone for a while again, and then my sister came, and yeah, so it was on and off with other
On and off.
people.
How did you do in your time alone? What did you find yourself doing, or like the lessons that came up of just being alone?
It was challenging. It's
Yeah.
so scary.
Yeah.
So what I did was I went to a party hostel, and a few years ago, if you would have told me that I would go to a party hostel, I would just laugh and be like, no way. But now my whole thought was, okay, what is the easiest way to make new friends fast?
Yeah,
Probably just to drink beer with people.
that's right.
So I went to this party also, and it was intense. It was so intense. I walked in and everyone was drinking by the pool, and there was really loud music. And I just walked in there with my backpack, like kind of like, hi. And
What's
everyone
up?
like yelled at me and welcome. And
Yeah.
I was so overwhelmed. I was like, oh my God, what have I got myself into?
Yeah.
So I went to my room, took a really deep breath, and just went to the bar, ordered a beer, and just talked to the first person I saw.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Way to work your confidence. And I love that. That's such a good message too, because you could have easily just gone to your room and stayed there.
I thought about it.
Yeah.
I really considered it. I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm just gonna lay here in my bed and just read a book or something, just be
Yeah.
by myself. And I was like, no, I came here to make friends, and I will make friends.
Yeah.
And I did. It was really easy to make friends, actually. And still, I think if I would travel now and I would be by myself, I would probably go to a party hostel as well. Maybe not to stay there, but just to hang out at the bar and meet people, because it's just so easy. They always have all these events. They always play beer pong, and I don't know, they always have like games that you can play with other people, and it's so easy to meet people.
Yeah, you can just kind of blend in and just make yourself like part of it. Just kind of go in.
Yes.
When you were you said Indonesia first. That's where you first went.
Yeah.
Had you been to Indonesia before, or any of the Asian countries, or was this a totally new experience for you?
No, I didn't go to Indonesia before that, but I did go to Malaysia. So that is an Asian country. It was kind of similar, and I went there with my mom, which was hilarious. I did a backpacking trip with my mom a few years ago. And when we were there, we met some people who were traveling by themselves, and they told us how it was and that it was actually fine. And yeah, we met this one girl, and she had the same name as me. She came from the same country, so that was really fun. And she told us all about her travels. And that really sparked my interest. Like, oh, okay, that's really interesting, because I always traveled a lot, but I always felt like I just had to go with someone else, and that I was not really 100% free to go when I wanted. I was always like, okay, when can we go together? And then we have to like put our schedules together to find the right time. And now when I talk to her, I was like, oh, okay, like people are doing this is actually a thing. And she had such a good time, and she told us about that. So yeah, that really sparked my interest. And I was like, okay, well, if all these people do it, then I can probably do it too. And worst case scenario, I just go home.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like there's always home. That's that safe spot. Did you have any culture shock when you were going to any of the places that you had been? Like, was that ever an experience that you had?
Oh, in every place.
Yeah.
Like, still, when I go to a different country, I still get a culture shock. And the funniest thing is, even when I came back home, which was only last August, I had such a big culture shock. I always have that.
Yeah, because the first time that I had gone, Indonesia was the first Asian country I had gone to. Actually, I mean, except for like my short layover in like Thailand, but that doesn't count. So Indonesia, and I remember like getting off the plane and like the excitement, right? Like you're just like so pumped. And
Yeah.
then and then it all hit me. Like I'm very used to, like I'm in the States, right? So we have really strict driving laws. And
Oh
then
yeah, they don't have any laws there.
no, you got no laws there. So when I'm seeing like these people on a moped and it's like a mom, a dad, and 3 kids, like a baby smashed in between them, and they're like zinging in and out. I was sitting in the back of the car. I am not exaggerating. I was like holding my knees like to my chest, and I was breathing like really deep because it was giving me such bad anxiety. Like the traffic, and I was like, what is going on? And the girl I was traveling with, she was like, it's okay, like breathe. And then a couple of days later, we had a personal driver for our house, and a couple of days later, his name was Molo, and Molo was like, oh, you don't want to get a motorbike? And I was like, Molo, do you have kids? And he was like, yeah, a daughter. And I was like, do you let her ride one? He's like, oh, no, too dangerous. And I was like, Molo, what are you trying to get me to do here, sir? But I was still like in that. I mean, I was there for 2 weeks, and I think I had just after a week really started to like feel, I was like, okay, I got the ropes of this. I understand a lot more. And then when I came home, I was overwhelmed by choices. Like the grocery stores overwhelmed me, and I wasn't expecting that when I came back. So how do you kind of decompress when you're feeling that overwhelm of the culture shock?
Yeah, that's a really good question. What I try to do is to have some things in my suitcase that make me feel at home, to get rid of that overwhelm and of that feeling of like anxiety and all that. So I try to listen to a playlist that I would also listen to like before that, just that makes me feel at home. And I have this meditation eye pillow, those things for your eyes. It's really relaxing, and it smells like lavender and chamomile and all these relaxing smells. So I would use that just to make it smell like home. And what I have now, I didn't have it back then, but what I have now is just where my laptop is also where my business is. So I can always work. I can just pick up work where I left it off. And that also made me really feel like home when I went to a new place. Yeah. Like, you know what? It doesn't matter what is going on all around me, because here on my laptop, it's still the same. Yes. And that really helped me.
Yes. Did you ever struggle when you were doing your freelancing and traveling of not having like Wi-Fi? Like, how do you work when Wi-Fi is kind of sketchy?
I never really had issues with Wi-Fi.
Oh, you lucky duck.
Yeah, I mean, I do like I am the person that asks Airbnb hosts how the Wi-Fi is and if they can run a speed test for me. So I definitely became that person.
No, that's a good tip. That's a really great tip.
Yeah, but I never really had any problem with it. What I always do is I always buy a local SIM card for my phone. So if something happens to the internet in the Airbnb where we're staying, then I would just hotspot from my phone. But that barely ever happened.
What are some of the bigger struggles that you kind of encountered as a digital nomad?
I think, well, the pandemic has been quite a big struggle to be honest,
yeah, okay.
Everyone.
Let's dive into that. How does that just like kind of jolted you? Because you go from freely traveling to lockdowns.
Yeah, it has not been great. When the pandemic hit, so last year, I was in Thailand with a friend. She came to visit me there, and we were supposed to travel there for about 2 weeks together. And just literally at that time, the whole world was getting into lockdowns and borders were closing, and we were quite stressed about that. I was actually planning to go home with her to the Netherlands. We booked, I think, the same flight home after a year and a half abroad. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like, that's perfect. You're going to the Netherlands. I'll just join you, and then I'll just visit home.
Yeah.
And so while we were traveling together, we were in Thailand, and everything was fine. Like, as in, we could just do what we wanted to do. There was no lockdown yet, but we kept checking the news, like, can we still go home?
Yeah.
And we actually she decided to go home a few days earlier, and I decided to go to Bali because before that I met a guy, which is now my boyfriend.
Ah.
Yeah, whole other story. But I decided to not go home and to go to Bali to see him, and to, yeah, kind of, well, the whole idea was to wait out the pandemic there. But that didn't go as planned because it took way longer than we expected. So I spent 5 months on Bali with him, which was kind of awesome. I mean, it was awesome to spend time with him and to really get to know him. We got to know each other really well. I mean,
Yeah.
in lockdown,
You're
together,
thrown into it. Yeah.
you cannot see anyone else. So it was kind of like all in.
Yeah.
24/7 together. So that was a good experience, though. Like, and yeah, it was strange because you're kind of checking the news every day. I tried to get away from that a little bit. I just let him check the news because I got a little bit of anxiety from that. Just too much information. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I just couldn't handle all the numbers. And so yeah, I mean, yeah.
Was it easy for you to then go back to the Netherlands after a certain amount of time, or did they have to lift restrictions there, or how did that play out?
Well, in theory, it was always possible to go back to the Netherlands, but there were no flights for a while, which was fine. We kind of counted on that. We kind of saw that coming, so that was totally fine. And then we decided to stay. Well, in the end, we stayed for 5 months. After about 3 months, we were like, should we go back? But we decided to stay because in Europe, it was so bad. Like, there were so many corona cases. And on Bali, it was really fine, actually.
Yeah.
There were some cases, but not many. So our whole strategy was to just stay away from the city, the big city, Denpasar. We just didn't go there. And we didn't see many people.
Yeah.
There were no events or anything like that. But other than that, the beach was closed for a few weeks, but that opened up again. And life was actually pretty normal. It was quiet, but normal. And then we were like, okay, are we going back to Europe where everything is crazy and there was a strict lockdown? Or are we just staying here where it's nice and sunny and we could just go to the gym and go to the beach for sunset?
Yeah.
So yeah, we did that for 5 months. And then after 5 months, there were a lot of things happening with visa requirements and everything.
Oh, yeah.
So before that, we actually had a 2-month visa, but we got an emergency visa. You didn't have to do anything for that. You just got it automatically. So you didn't have to go to the immigration office, nothing. You didn't have to apply for it. You just got it. So you could just stay. Which was really nice. But then all of a sudden, the Balinese government was like, okay, so now you have to go to the immigration office and apply for, I don't know, a new visa. And you get it if you have this visa, but not if you have another visa. And it was all really, really complicated and very unclear. So everyone was like, what's going to happen? And I just saw that as a sign that it is probably time to go back home for a while. And by that time, it was 2 years since I left. So it was time.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, too, it kind of felt good to be home, but do you have the travel bug just itching again?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I came home and I was here for a month, and then I went to Germany to live there with my boyfriend. So then we lived there together for 5 months, and now I'm back home again, or like kind of quote unquote home, in my family's house. And I was planning to leave again to the Canary Islands, and in theory I could go there, but I need a COVID test before I hop on the plane, and then when I'm there I need another COVID test, and that's it. So it's not that difficult to go.
Yeah.
But what I realized is if I'm there, I cannot just visit home easily. because then you have to look up all the rules that are in place now, and it changes every week or whatever. And then you have to take a test, and I don't know, and then quarantine. But if you would come to the Netherlands now, you would have to quarantine for 14 or 10 days. No, 10 days. So that is also like, you cannot just visit for a week.
Right.
So I was like, I'm really not looking forward to dealing with all of that.
Yeah, it puts things in perspective, I'm sure, of like what can my anxiety, and also like just what do I want to deal with when it comes to traveling, because we all have limits of like what we're willing to do and not do.
Yes, absolutely. And I just made a decision that for now, I really value the time that I'm spending with my family. And I also see this as an opportunity to just stay put for a while and just do some work, and I don't know, just spend time with my family. That's quite unique for me to spend so much time with my family. So I just want to enjoy that as much as I can. And we want to travel again, but we're not really in a rush, actually. I really enjoy it now.
Yeah, I think it's good that you get that time to settle. And I'm sure that when life picks back up and you'll be on the road busy again, then you'll have this time that you spent with your family to just like really appreciate that you had it too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also that I don't have to feel guilty if I don't come home for another year, because I'm like, okay, now I like build up all this like backlog of quality time.
Yes, no, I feel you. I actually haven't seen my family in almost 2 years. So like I get that too. And I always think it's easier when you can spend a mass amount of time with them versus like just a weekend, because then you're pulled in so many different directions with like a very short visit of so many people wanting to see you and spend time with you. So almost that extended stay allows you to just give more of you to more people as well. Like you have quality time, not just you're getting 5 minutes of my face and hi, how you doing?
True. Yeah, so true. Absolutely. Like, I feel like if it's only a weekend, then it's like, okay, now we have to have a good time together.
Yes. Yeah. Like we can't just chill and be boring together and hang out, like have some laughs. Well, if we are, thinking of a world that's open again and free of travel, and there's someone who still wants to lean into this digital nomad lifestyle, what's one big tip or takeaway that you could give to them as they start this journey?
I think, I have many. I think just know that it's possible, that it's super possible. Like, I am not that special. So many different people are doing so many different things. And I think I want to tell you that digital nomad life, it's not one lifestyle. It's actually, it can look completely different for different people. So it gives you a lot of freedom to create your own schedule and your own life, basically. So some people, they literally work 9 to 5 on their laptops, and then afterwards they go to watch the sunset, and that's their day. Other people, they only work in the mornings and then go on adventures and hiking, or I don't know. Some people like to go to co-working spaces. Other people like to work from home. It can really literally look like the way you want it. So know that it's possible, and know that you have so much freedom to also make it your own lifestyle. There's not one digital nomad lifestyle. It's literally what you make of it.
Oh, that's such a great tip and a beautiful ending point. And will you tell our audience where they can go to learn more about you and connect with you further?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a podcast about digital nomad life, which is kind of like my hobby podcast. I just talk to other digital nomads about their life and why they decided to become a digital nomad, and I share their stories. So the podcast is called Digital Nomad Stories.
Perfect.
So you can find me there. So my business is that I help podcasters in monetizing their podcast. And my business name is The Podcast Babes. And I also have a podcast for that, which is also called The Podcast Babes. So you can also find me there, and also Instagram at the Podcast Babes, Facebook, Pinterest. I'm always the Podcast Babes.
Awesome. I'll be sure to link it in case anyone needs help finding it. But Anne, you are such a bright light, and I love the work that you're doing and the space that you're holding. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Lauren. It was great to continue our conversation.
As mentioned earlier, Anne and I had a double dose of podcast fun as I was also on her podcast. I love collaborations like this, and I really appreciate and value the work that Anne is doing. I've linked Anne's website and social channels on this week's episode notes found on mindbizlife.com. Don't forget to let me know what resonated with you on today's episode. Share that feedback with me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, all at mindbizlife. And drop a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you tune in and turn it up. I'm back on Friday for another episode of Fuel Your Life Friday. But until then, remember, every level of life is an opportunity to grow. Be well, my friend.